After falling down 0-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes in their second round matchup of the playoffs, we're going to take a look back at this playoffs as a whole for the Philadelphia Flyers, including some players having breakout playoff series, having real success in new lines and new positions, and overall just how this team has been overperforming thus far and what we can look forward to in future games. As per usual, if you've been enjoying this content, these videos as a whole, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. It's 100% free to you. Most of the people that watch these videos aren't subscribed, and it really does help the channel out a lot. Plus, it helps you stay up to date with the Flyers and stay up to date with me as a whole. Without further ado, we're going to jump right on into it. Now, the Philadelphia Flyers and the Carolina Hurricanes met for Game 2 of their second round series in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night. The Flyers unfortunately lost that game in overtime off of a Taylor Hall backbreaker, but overall, these playoffs have been really successful for the Flyers. Regardless of how this series ends for Carolina, the Flyers are in a good spot to move forward from no matter what happens here. And a very big part of that has been some players, one of which who I want to bring to your attention immediately, being Jamie Drysdale, who has continued to be incredibly strong on both ends during the playoffs. And this is just continued improvement on a year-over-year basis. He got a little bit better after he first came over from Anaheim. He definitely got better this year, especially after the addition of Trevor Zegras. He's overall looked happier as a player, and as a whole, Drysdale has been, especially in the playoffs, incredibly like a lot better on the offensive end. His defense has gotten better over the year as a whole, but that being said, the Flyers no longer have they no longer have this problem with Jamie where it's like, oh, he's basically a fourth forward, or oh, he's not really a defenseman at all. He should probably just get moved up to wing. Like he's certainly made a bunch of progress. And I think that it's incredible to see that, and especially seeing it in a year where so many people, myself included, thought the Flyers were going to have a bad year and weren't going to make the playoffs has been amazing. His game has also translated incredibly well into the playoffs. He's consistently been one of the best players in the playoffs of the Flyers. I'm going to draw your attention over here to this stat graphic. I know it's fairly small and it's kind of hard to see, but Jamie Drysdale is the third highest rated defenseman on the Flyers team. Now, granted, he had some issues some issues last game. He was a little bit bad on the stats side, but overall, from an eye test perspective, if you were just someone that was watching the game casually, he looked great last night. He overall played a very good game, and he's continuing to play some good hockey. Alongside him, Sean Couturier. If you told people in January that Sean Couturier would have had the second goal for the Flyers in a playoff game, people would think that you had lost your mind and were still continuing to lose it. And he is just another one of the Flyers that have been playing exceptionally well throughout these playoffs and have really been showing that this team as a whole can rise to the occasion and can play a lot better than they were after the new year and before the Olympic break. Now, we're going to jump into some players that potentially have been will potentially find roles in either new positions come later next season or even later on in these playoffs. But the one I want to introduce you to most is Denver Barkey. There have been a lot of people on places like Twitter, and especially myself and even head coach Rick Tocchet, who have really liked seeing Denver Barkey kind of embrace this role as a center. I talked about it a little bit yesterday before the game happened, that I liked the idea of having Barkey as a potential second option as a center on a line, or even potentially having him as just the starting center for one of our middle six lines. He's been a great player. He's a good skater, and he being at center kind of keeps him from that major downside, which is his size overall. He's not a very tall guy. He's about 5'10", or 5'9", 5'10". If you remember, the Flyers have some pretty good history with centers that are a little bit undersized. Claude Giroux famously is under 6 feet tall. He's an incredible player for the Flyers. Denver Barkey, I don't think is going to be Claude Giroux. I'm not saying that on the slightest right now. What I am saying is that Barkey, if he embraces the center role, and like I was saying yesterday, maybe tries to model some of his game after a guy like Logan Stankoven, who also has some kinds of issues when it comes to size, but plays incredibly well at his position, can embrace a much bigger role in this team and can become a much better player overall, and I think can actually find a permanent role as either a 2 or 3C on this Flyers team, because he's probably, let's face the truth here, he's not going to be a top line winger if he continues to play at the wing. All right, he's not a guy that, especially with his limited size, he's not going to be able to play down the boards and be physical on the boards with people as well as other guys on this team can be. So moving him to center would be a huge help. Speaking of line changes and position changes overall, a lot of people, myself included, have been thinking that especially after some play in the last couple of games, especially after that the assist in Game 6 of the Penguins series, and most importantly, his shift in overtime against the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 2, Matvei Michkov might deserve some time in the top 6. Now, we've seen that Michkov, since his benching, has been a better player overall. I'm not saying he's been the best player in the lineup. That's still safely Sean Couturier. I'm not going to try and get in your head and tell you that it's Matvei Michkov by a mile now. I'm not trying to push that agenda at all. What I am going to say is that Michkov at least deserves some form of nod for what he's been doing, as Flyers fans everywhere have been ripping on him and giving him a hard time for the fact that he's had a slow start in these playoffs. But overall, if you saw how he played in overtime of game 2, and even just how he played that game in general, he was a very strong player. Actually, it was kind of odd. It was what's it called? A player who's notably absent here, Porter Martone, that had kind of a rough game. Martone was an iffy player last night. He had a bunch of turnovers. He kind of lost his step there. And I don't really know if it was Carolina's system getting to him, if he's just finally coming down from that insane high he had coming into the series. But Marty just wasn't looking like it was it. And these are just some lines that some people have been throwing around. It's been what I've cobbled together from some discussion that people have taken. But overall, I don't think that this right here is the exact solution. I have my opinions of Tyson Forster that I've been incredibly verbal about, as I think that he's been underperforming a ton, and I think that if there's anybody on this lineup that deserves to take some time off and maybe get to take a seat in the back and watch the game from the press box, I think it's Tyson Forster. I think it's him before Martone any day of the week. I think Martone should be in that second line, or on that second line with Cates and Tippett in this example, or even provided if Tippett isn't available for Game 3, I think that Martone needs to be in that spot of Tippett instead of or alongside Forster and Cates. That being said, there is some serious conversation when it came to these lines, as the Flyers definitely had a lot better success in Game 2 with the new lines that they threw around. However, there have still been some disparities. Notably, there are a lot of people that are getting upset, me included, about the distribution of time on ice during power plays for some people. Travis Konecny has been an incredibly iffy player these playoffs, most specifically on the power play. Now, I'm not going to talk about the breakaway in overtime. That in and of itself, it's high pressure situation. I know that it's something that he beat himself up for after the game. I'm not going to beat the dead horse that he's already hit enough himself. All right, it probably hasn't left his mind since it happened, all things considered. But that doesn't change the fact that he's been overall ineffective, to say the least, this entire playoffs. And last night was just another extension of it. Konecny had an overwhelming amount of power play time, whereas Michkov and Bump, a guy who Tocchett has been praising and praising and praising the shot of all year long, just could not get time on ice during the power play. Alex Bump had 24 seconds, and I'm pretty sure it was at the end of a power play, so they were just getting a line switch in anyways. So it amazes me that Tocchett continues to put Konecny in and try and force this agenda of having Travis Konecny be a significant playoff power play staple, when there are other guys that have been performing better recently and performing better in this series specifically that have not been getting those chances. However, Tocchett, and I will give him this, certainly shares the same sentiment that some other Flyers fans have, that this team certainly is not dead yet. The Flyers are not dead yet. We've been dead before, and we've climbed out of the grave. He said it himself. Do I think that the Flyers are going to miraculously turn this 0-2 series deficit against Carolina into a 4-2 series win? No. Do I think that that the Flyers are going to magically come back and reverse sweep? No. I do think the Flyers are going to make it interesting, though. And I really do think that they can take one of, if not both, games at home. Because Game 2 was incredibly close. And it provided the Flyers can stay on top of things and can stay in the same mode, if you want to call it, as they did as they were in Game 2, then I think the Flyers most certainly can absolutely steal one, if not both games at home. Tocchett's also been on record recently talking about just the reasons that these games don't go their way and trying to use every game as a learning experience. We heard, especially from Taylor Hall in his between period interview in Game 2, that the Hurricanes were very caught off guard by the way that the Flyers adapted between games 1 and 2. It's something that they've faced very little adversity up to this point, right? There are a lot of people saying that the Hurricanes have been having a very easy road to the conference finals so far, assuming that they beat the Flyers. That being said, while I think that they didn't really face much adversity against Ottawa, sorry, Ottawa fans, but I do think that the Flyers' ability to adapt and come out swinging early really did catch the Hurricanes off guard. And if the Flyers can keep this pace up and can stay playing the way that they did in the first period and in the start of that the right before that overtime ended, where they were dominating the Hurricanes in the offensive zone. They were getting more shots than them, getting more opportunities, keeping their lines out there for long periods of time and getting them tired out. I think the Flyers certainly can steal games away from the Hurricanes. That being said, if you disagree with me on any of this, if you think that I'm an idiot for even thinking the Flyers can potentially win a game, please make sure that you let me know in the comments. I love hearing people give their takes, respond to my own takes. Just the overall discourse that happens after these videos is amazing, and I think that regardless if you agree with me, if you think that I'm an idiot, if you think that I need to be doing, or if I need to be thinking about something else, talking about something else, please make sure that you let me know in the comments. It's always incredibly fun to talk to all of you down there. That being said, though, I this is going to be it for today, and I will see all of you around. Have a good rest of your night, and go Flyers.